Hey Rajiv, how you doing? You're on mute.
Hi James, how are you?
It's been a long time. How's everything with you? How's your new job?
New job is good. A lot of work. I mean, getting busy. So
Enjoying it? Is it a managerial position or more of a individual contributor?
no, it's more like managing kind of reporting to the VP.
Oh, that's
And,
awesome.
yeah. And it's also working in collaboration with another company, Deloitte in India.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like working as a liaison between the team here and the team in Deloitte in India,
Got it. So
and
did
reporting to the management and providing all the KPIs and
oh, that's cool. So I hope this class have helped you in learning those high level information, strategic information.
yeah. I mean, it's more kind of a job that I was doing in my previous job as well. I mean, in the previous job as well, I was more like a project kind of a coordinator kind of, and
Mhm.
trying to collaborate with different groups and getting the thing work done, and also reporting all the KPIs to the management. So
That's where your stability lies, man. If you go into like project coordination and like get requirement gathering role and all right, it's a longer project, longer duration, and I think there is a future there.
right. James, one thing I really couldn't focus much and couldn't prepare much at all.
I realized it, but I think at least you have a job, so I'm happy for that, right?
Yeah,
And
thank
you can take your time whenever you have time. Do not forget to go through those videos because you will forget things pretty quickly. If you want
yeah,
to make your way out from this QA thing,
right.
it might be the right time. It might take a little longer for you because you already have a job now,
Right.
and it is taking most of your time. Then I think just try to spend an hour daily or an hour at least in 2 to 3 days. In that way, you
Right.
are you are caught up in what's been taught. It would be a
Right.
little easier for you to go through information since you're already working and you already have some of this information, right?
Right.
Before you join the class. So it should not be that
Yeah.
difficult.
Right. One thing what I see is beneficial for people who are like not from this industry is because they're like a clean slate. So
Yeah.
whatever you pick them, it'll stick to their minds and they will focus on that and they'll be able to get through clearly at the very first
Yeah.
round. So that's a benefit for them. But for somebody who is like already working eh, with already the work pressure that they have and
I know.
this new thing coming on, it's a little bit of challenging for them to
No, no,
get
I
the
understand. I understand. And that's completely fine. So don't worry about that. Take your time and whenever you are ready, just let me know. We'll
sure.
probably work on those things. And even for your managerial thing here, if you need any help, feel free to buzz me. I'll make
Sure.
sure to give you some more tips in your strategic role where you could be more successful.
Sure. Thank you.
Hey Resham, how are you doing?
Rishabh,
Good. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm happy it's Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, but you have
I
to go
think I
back
should
to work
not be.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said you have to go back to work tomorrow.
Not really because I'm working from home. So Monday morning is like usually my catch up time on my weekend because I work in the weekend. So Monday morning I don't work. My
Oh,
office
good for
people thinks
you.
that I'm working, but I don't work on Monday morning. Monday
Good.
morning and Tuesday afternoons is what I turn off my brain. I just do repetitive stuff in my office.
Nice.
Yep. But
What
cool.
about you, Rajiv? Staying busy?
Staying busy, yes,
Yeah.
as well. So I'm working from home right now. But again, the same Monday feeling is there. When Sunday comes, you feel, oh my God, tomorrow is Monday. We have to go back to work. So
Yeah.
I
What are
wish
you doing?
I work in quality assurance. I work as
Oh,
a
okay.
more towards QA lead and management position. So
Okay. Nice.
I'm just waiting for the time, James. I'm waiting for the time when there would be a time where I would not have that feeling anymore, saying it's Monday, and that only happens probably when you enjoy your job that much.
Yes, that's
As
that's the main thing.
so that I want to get to that feeling, but
it,
somehow
it would not be possible. It's not just enjoying your job, it's also about enjoying your work culture, right? So like you can love to do what you're liking, like you can be a manager, you can try to do things that's going to be really really helpful, but
yeah,
if your office people make it difficult for you, you will not enjoy that.
exactly.
Absolutely true.
So
Actually,
and that reminds me, I actually talked with my manager about those things that I was talking with you guys about, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Sujay, I think Sujay is not planning to join today. I think she had accepted a temporary position somewhere else. So she's probably planning to catch up on these things probably after a month or so. So I think it will be just us for now. And so something really great happened. So I was working with other business stakeholders. They recognized my name for Employee of the Month twice in 1 month. And
Nice.
my boss was little caught off guard with that, because he was like, if other business stakeholders are liking my work so much that nobody got this recognition from his team, then what is the problem, right? So he started going back and correcting himself, where in the meeting itself he's trying to put forward me as, hey, Jinkal has done an amazing job on the documentation, and the stuff that he's bringing into the team is really valuable. So his mindset is changing completely. I've still not had that discussion, because I'm trying to catch him at a time where he's not expecting to discuss these things.
Yeah.
I really want to surprise him so that I can get his honest thoughts there, right? So I'm learning as well with some new techniques and new things, but I'm at least happy that I at least gave him a cold message that, hey, I'm not interested in what you are doing, and I'll just be silent in meetings. It's completely fine with me. I think he got that message. Things are recovering. I think in a week or two, I'm going to discuss about that. I'll keep you guys posted what happens after that. But I've learned a new strategy to talk to them, so we'll find out.
Yeah.
But things are going good.
Yeah.
But
Good.
still, I'm not enjoying my Monday. So, so
Good luck
it's
with-
not about. So Mondays are always like that. So for me, I don't enjoy Mondays because I don't get weekends. So for me, it's like 7 days a week. And but yeah, I think Rajiv, I wish I'm definitely praying for you. You would be reaching that goal sometime soon. Just keep me posted, and just focus on your new job that you're working on, and reach
Sure.
out if you need any help.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Because all the managerial positions, whether it's BA, QA, PO, what doesn't matter. All the managerial positions, they have the same people issues that you have to solve for.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's start with the session today. Resham, I believe you were able to go through all the recordings. You are all caught up on all the sessions that we have covered so far,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not too worried about the last 2 or 3 recordings that I've sent, because I think that's like too technical and too much in detail. I don't know if
Okay.
in your interview you will be asked those questions that quickly or in that detail, but there can be a case. So whenever you have time, if you've not gone through those last 2 to 3 videos, please go through them whenever you have time.
So I was actually going to ask you a specific question about that. When you
Go ahead.
say the detailed videos, are you talking about specifically Salesforce and SQL?
No, SQL and FRD.
Okay, so I was when I was watching class 10, you did it in 2 parts, part 1, part 2. It seems like to me, I got the impression that class 10 covers some kind of fringe aspects of BA, PO, Scrum Master, and that the core concepts that we may be covering in interviews were classes 1 through 9. Would you say that's the case?
I'm not sure if I followed that.
So class 10 was covering test-driven development. It was covering non-functional requirements, types of analysis,
Yes,
things like that.
those are important for you to know.
Okay.
Those are
Okay.
important for you to know. The ones that I've sent you, which are not covered in the class, and I've sent you a recording for that. Just go over that recording in your free time. Those
Okay.
recordings, I meant to say that those are at a lower priority at this point. If you have
Okay.
completed everything that we have covered in the class, if you're caught up on that, you should be able to start handling interviews, and you should be able to start preparing yourself for mock calls and all.
Okay.
Right? And we don't have to lose a sight on other 2 or 3 videos that I'm talking about. After you're ready for the mock interview, we can start reviewing that information a little more, so that whenever someone puts you on the spot for those specific things, you're able to answer them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
And Rajiv, I know you don't have more time, but Resham, my another batch has started. I think I'm in the 3rd week of that, and I'm doing a few new things next week, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
If you want to join in, feel free to join in. It should be completely fine with me. And I'm planning to cover a few new tactics there, if possible. I tried one of the tactics this week and it worked out really well. So I think in next week I'll probably try a couple of more. But if Rajiv, if you also want to join in, feel free to join in.
Sure, Jeff. So what is the topic about on the tactics?
I've not decided that, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to try something new.
Okay,
So
and
it will
what
be
time
about user story and agile. It will be about user story and agile.
and what time is it? The same time, 10 o'clock?
Same time, 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Okay.
Yeah, you can come in anytime and drop out anytime whenever you want. It's completely fine. And but just wanted to give you guys a chance. If there is something new, if you want to attend the class, it's all on you. No pressure.
Sure.
your convenience and your curiosity.
Sure.
Okay.
And James, for today's session, are we going to go through some of the questions, interview questions generally?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So a couple of things we're going to talk about today, right? So first is the resume preparation. So I'm going to send you 6 or 7 resumes for BA, 6 or 7 resumes for PO, sample resumes. I'll go ahead.
Are you recording this session by any
Yes,
chance?
I am.
Good. Thank you.
This is the most important recording that you would need from
Yeah.
all the other recording sessions. So
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. So I will be sending you 6 to 7 BA resumes sample and product owner samples as well. And I would let you make your own draft first.
Okay.
But again, my first priority will be after this session is done, I would really like to see that, Rajiv, if you have time, it's fine. But if not, then we can catch up on that later. But Resham, if you have more time available this week, I'm really expecting to take your mock interview by next week or middle of the week after that.
Okay.
So take this 1.5 week, pure 1.5 week, go through the recordings that I'm going to send you today. I'll be sending one more recording for Scrum Master interview to you all. Go over those recordings, prepare yourself for your interview, and I will take your mock interview. Once you
Okay.
clear the mock interview, don't worry about the resumes and all for the mock interview. I'm just going to talk about, assume that you have 6 years of experience and you're going to talk about the lead aggregation project, like lead segregation, the one that we talked about, lead routing. That's one project. Second is the digital mortgage, and third is the mobile application. You can create your stories around these 3 projects for the mock interview. And I will help you with your actual resume, but at least want you to take a stab at it so you know what kind of things are included in the resume for BA and PO. So I'll be sending you that information, but creating the resume will be your second priority. First priority will be to prepare for the mock interview. After you're clearing the mock interview, third step would be I'll be connecting you with my business partner and we'll be starting your marketing from here. And I believe you said while you were joining, you may want to do marketing on your own as well. You've not, I think you were not decided about that before, if I'm not wrong.
I'm leaning towards doing it through you.
Okay, got it.
Marketing.
Then I can, then we can talk about that, and I can include you with a conversation with my business partner. We can share the model and what kind of resume we're going to send and all those things. And market is going to be a little low because it's Christmas time. People are not
Yeah.
hiring. So I think
That's-
January 10th or 15th is the time when market will pick up. But I really want to at least make sure that before that, we just apply randomly. We get 2 to 3 recruiter calls, and at least we are able to refine our pitch before we actually get into the market on 10th or 15th of January. And that's the time, because 15th of January market will be really hot. I think we should be able to get you a couple of interviews in 30 to 45 days from there, if things
Okay.
are really going good.
Okay.
COVID has shifted things really bad. Still people are filing unemployment, like about 700,000 people are still filing unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
So market is bad, but we'll see whatever we can do.
Okay.
James, how is the market in general? I mean, as such, right now due to the COVID, is it like, you know,
Market is really bad. Earlier, I used to get at least 3 to 4 calls from LinkedIn. Right now, I get 1 call from LinkedIn in like 3 weeks.
Okay.
It's that bad. And I have created my resume. I can tell you, I've put in like 80 hours of effort in creating my new resume for my senior product managerial position. And I'm getting excellent comments from the recruiters, but that resume, it is still hard to get interviews these days on those resumes. Because sometimes people told me that looking at the resume, it gives them a feeling that I'm a very expensive resource. So they're not even calling me. So it is backbiting me in a different way. But overall market is not good. And but still there is a way. Things can still work out. I think it all depends on getting 1 or 2 interview calls. And if we are extremely prepared, if we do a good job, then we could probably nail the interview right there.
actually some of my colleagues, actually, they during this time only they got through product owners. They were all quality assurance working with me.
Quality assurance. Oh wow, okay,
Now,
that's cool.
they have all become product owners, and one of them, I mean, 2 of them have got promotions. They're like senior product owner right now.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Yeah,
I
and
have
then-
some lights for you there.
yeah. So I was like, yeah, everybody is like, you know, there were 2 or 3 of them.
Getting into product owner is a little simpler. Getting into product management is a little more difficult because it's more in terms of business revenue and contributing to that. Product owner is still like has to work with the product manager and get things done. I'm shooting for a level above product manager where I'm already right now. And as you go higher, it's more difficult to find positions.
Yeah.
Because you will not find right fit in terms of work culture, in terms of your pay scale, in terms of your skills and all. It doesn't fit everywhere. So you have to pick and choose, and people will also pick and choose you at the same time. But BA and PO, you will get more opportunities. Scrum Master, little less opportunities. And Scrum Master is the toughest one to crack. So I would rather focus our energy on BA and PO. We can put words in interviewers' mouth that, hey, I know how to handle Scrum Master responsibilities. I've done that in the absence of Scrum Master. I used to run sprint planning sessions. I used to run S2 or S3 meetings and all those things. So we'll talk about it, right? But our majority focus should be on BA or a PO. That's a longer term role. Scrum Master role, you may get it for 6 months and then you'll be fired. So Scrum Master role is not a long-term role, right? Because it's more into the project manager, right? And BA or a PO would have a really high. If I were to tell you, there are only two roles that are extremely stable roles in the company. One is BA or PO, and the second is data analysis. Those two roles does not die that easily. People need them. All other roles are stable, but the length of that stability is a little lesser than these two roles. Okay. Cool. So I think let's get started. Let me. I will be sharing a recording with you all for Scrum Master from my previous class, where I think I've covered exclusively all the questions around Scrum Master role for about 30 minutes. And I think that's about it. Nobody's going to ask you anything more than that. But I think today I want to focus on BA and a PO. So I think we have another hour and 15 minutes. I would first give you guys a chance for 15-20 minutes to interview me. Just ask any random question that you have in your mind based on your knowledge. And then I'll go into the other questions that we've not covered from those things. Cool. Just to give you a feeling, and it will be like a real interview. If you have any questions on the jargons that I'm using, please hold on to those questions. Just type it in the chat and I'll get back to them later. Okay. Let me, I think I don't need to share my screen. We are recording the class and let me see. All right, I'm ready.
First question I can think of, they always ask, tell me about yourself. I don't really have a format for the answer to tell me about yourself.
Cool. So, hey, Resham and Rajiv, first of all, thank you so much for calling me. I was just waiting for your call. I'm really excited to talk to you guys and discuss my profile because I feel that my profile is closely aligning with what you're looking for this role. And just to give a little bit introduction about me, I have worked for 12 years in IT industry. I've performed various roles, including business analyst, senior business analyst, product owner, product manager, and a Scrum Master role in my previous job experiences. And I have a deep passion for working towards business analysis and product owner role. And hence I've applied for your company. I worked for varied projects in my career, including digital mortgage, lead routing, and the mobile application project. And I've like made myself really well versed in the areas of writing documentations. I can write documents extremely quickly. I worked in an environment where I could work with zero documentation, or if you give me just few days of time, and if I want to create a detailed documentation, I could still do that. So I've created BRD, FRDs, user stories, use cases, mockups, wireframes, process flow diagrams, and whatnot, including business cases and stuff like that. I might have written probably about 2,000 user stories by now. In addition to this, my other day-to-day responsibilities at my current company is mostly around managing the sprint backlog, product backlog, working with the team to make sure that the product gets delivered in time, and at the end, gather the customer's feedback to make sure that we are enhancing our product constantly. I have acquired expertise working in both Agile and Scrum, Agile and the waterfall environment, and my communication skills and my flexibility in my role can be really a good asset for your team. I think I would probably shape it in this zone.
Okay. So you talk about experience, background, and some skill set.
If I were you, for you guys, I would probably not say anything other than explaining waterfall. Waterfall is like you start with the hey, I have acquired a lot of experiences working for financial company, And my recent projects were digital mortgage, Uber application, lead routing projects that I've worked on. And I've created business cases. I will start in this. I will not say that I'm explaining waterfall, but I will go in that flow, because everyone in IT knows waterfall so well that they will be able to relate with what you are saying. So it's your first win. You are able to connect with the interviewer. So I have created the business cases for for some of the projects that I've worked on. After creating business cases, I've also worked on creating a project scope and vision documents for the projects that I was working on. I've worked in both a waterfall and agile environment. I've created a lot of business requirement documents, functional requirement documents, use cases, user stories, mockups, wireframes, and whatnot, right? Non-functional requirements. And I have acquired skills to work with designers really, really well, to make sure that I review their designs, give them feedback, work with the technical team to create the architecture diagram, and bring up the use cases that they've not thought about. Once that happens, I'll be working very closely with development team to perform smoke testing before they put their code in the test environment. Once it's in test environment, I will be heavily focusing on user acceptance testing, along with clarifying QA doubts. If QA team has any doubts or defects, I'll be reviewing them, prioritizing them, and at the end, just planning for the release and taking customers' feedback while creating user guide for our internal resources. So I've explained the entire waterfall, right? So person who's listening to you would not go back and forth, what did you work and what did you not work on? So without saying waterfall word, you have still explained yourself in that order. It's right. In my mind, it's a structured answer, just because you have to at least take 2 minutes. Yeah. If you answer anything less than 2 minutes is not a good answer. You at least want to give 2 minutes of answer so that you put words in interviewer's mouth now. Use all the jargons that you can. Let them think through, right? Creating user stories, BRD, FRD, non-functional requirement, architecture diagram, designing. I've used all the jargons here. So now I'm compelling him to use few more questions around this, right? So first interview would be for 30 to 45 minutes, mostly. An hour is like a stretched. And that is like when you're going into the final rounds. By that time, you will already have a confidence. But in this 30 minutes, if they will be taking 5 minutes to talk about the company and give you 2 minutes to ask the questions and answers at the last. So 5 minutes is taken out. So you're 25 minutes. If you do 2 to 3 minutes one answer, you're probably they're going to ask you about 8 to 10 questions, right? 8 to 10 questions is what they're going to ask you. Out of those 8 to 10 questions, 4 to 5 questions, you can drive them by giving, tell me about yourself, answer. You are going to compel them to ask you a few more questions around that. Yeah. So you would exactly drive those 3 or 4 questions and you know what they're going to ask you after that. You would be prepared for them. A couple of questions will come up from the conversation. Then a couple of things you have to relate in the interviewer and the job profile that they're going to mention about. So 60% interview we can predict, 40% interview we cannot predict. Right? Cool. So I think that will be your flavor of story. If you're talking about, tell me about yourself. What's next?
Rajiv, do you have any questions? I'm looking at mine also.
I actually haven't prepared any questions as such, but I'll have a question. I can ask a question randomly. So first, let me ask that question, James. So the question is, when you don't have, or the client, that there's a client who is supposed to give you the requirements, but unfortunately he's been missing, he's not here. In his absence, how do you gather the requirements when one of the most important resource, the client who is building the product, is missing? What do you do in that case? How do you gather the requirements?
It's a question. Amazing question, Rajiv. And I did have come across these scenarios a few times in my career, where a person who is extremely involved in this project suddenly quits the job due to some family reasons, or his contract is ending because of some visa issues and stuff like that. So I've definitely come across these situations, and I follow a very simple and straightforward approach, right? When a person is not available to answer questions, of course, someone else has to make those decisions. So I will first try to find out, I will talk to my manager and I will try to find out who is that person who's going to take decisions, right? If my manager tells that we do not know who to take these decisions, then we'll probably come together as a team, we'll discuss the approach, and we'll say, hey, these are the pros and cons of these things. Assume that if that person was here, what decision that person would choose to make, right? We'll put ourselves in his shoe and we'll try to think like him. That's the most important thing that a BA can do from his side, or a product owner. And I can tell you there was a time where I was working on one of the project where we were working on lead routing scenarios, and all the lead routing questions, like the guy was lead routing expert. What kind of logic we need to use to route the leads, what kind of criteria we need to use to prioritize our leads. Everything was in his head. And we had created some documentation, but like he was the brain behind it. And that person had to suddenly leave in between. So it definitely, there was some nervousness in the team. But I took the ownership. I said that, hey, I understand that we don't have this person here. Let me just take a stab at it. Let me just see what questions team has. Let me try to answer whatever I can from my side. If I cannot answer things, I'll assume things. If I have questions, I'll try to find out someone else in the company who can answer this question. If there is no one, we'll just get together as a team, make a decision, and just move forward, and we'll assume the risk as a team. Right? It all boils down to the team or finding out the person who's going to take the decision at that time. And usually you find one or two other people who do have knowledge about that topic. They may not be expert, but at least they can give you a high level guidance. Say this is what you should be doing, and I think that is more than enough in that time to make a decision.
Right. So James, one question in this. I mean, you answered it pretty well. It's really, really clear. Very nice. One question is that can we talk about RACI during this time, that RACI chart? Because like when you get into a project, right? As soon as you get into a project, you try to find out who is accountable, who is responsible, should be informed.
You can do that.
Right.
You can do that, but only if you have a RACI chart available for your company, right? Not every company or every project will have a RACI chart.
Right. I mean, is it an option to just come up and say that, hey, you know what? I would probably do this when in absence of that person. I will try to find out based on the chart that I have, saying that these are the most influential people, or these are the most important people in the company who are supposed to provide requirements for this project. In their absence, I will try to reach out to like how you said, I'll reach out to the manager and try to find out who is the next best or the most important resource in absence of this particular person.
Yep.
So
you can use that.
Yeah, okay. That way. Okay.
You can use that, but just don't say I will use RACI chart. Give them an example.
Okay.
If you see, I created a story on the fly about lead routing project.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to, we can still talk about the same projects that we've done in the class, but we need to create a story.
Sure.
You cannot give your answers without examples.
Right.
Otherwise, it will look like a theory. That is the first thing that we need to do in the interviews to put ourselves above average. Always come up with examples.
So if I give a lead aggregator project, do you think that person may understand what lead aggregator project is?
They may not, and that's completely fine, right? We don't have to go into the details of what the project was about. This question was more of a behavioral question, right? So this was the project I was working on, and team was suffering because we did not have the subject matter expert. So I took the ownership, and I wanted to make sure that I understand team's question. So I wrote those questions. I did my analysis on my own. I am a very research oriented person. I like to do research on my own, right? I did research, and I tried to tap into a few of the resources who I knew in the company who were working in that area, because there would be some or the other people in the company who knows about this topic for sure. They may not be expert, but they may have some level of information, and that is what we need to make decision, right? And I would, if nothing is available, I'll put myself in that person's shoe who is not available, and I would try to think like that, what this person could have made a decision on. And I would, because working with that person, I kind of adopted their style on making decision, what kind of questions they ask, what kind of thinking they have behind making any decision. So I adopt those things. I'm very good at observing people. So I observed their style, and I would try to put myself in that shoe and try to execute things accordingly. I may make a wrong decision, but again, it's a risk we have to take, because we cannot really stop the project for one person.
Right. Thank you. One more question.
No problem. Go ahead.
So one more question is, you took requirements for a project, and you realized that towards the end of the project, when you were, the project was being executed, you realized that the requirement that was taken is kind of not right, and the end product is not mapping up with the requirements that you had taken. I mean, basically what I mean to say is the requirement is not right for the project that you're trying to deliver. What do you do in that case? I mean,
So that's an excellent question. And I do run across those scenarios once in a while. It's not that frequent because I always make sure that whenever I'm writing documents, it's extremely clear and the vision of the entire project is clear before I even start on it. But there are times where I've started projects in between, and like I'm being brought into the team where the project is already running on. I've seen some kind of things like this happening there, and I can talk about an example. So I was working on this project called digital reimagining website that we were creating for our company. It was we were recreating the entire customer portal to make it better and to increase our conversion on that. A lot of customers were dropping out from that site because our site was designed very poorly, and it was all the information was scattered out. So we worked on this project to create this site in a way where all the information is consolidated and shown properly to the user, the way user is expecting to see that, right? And while working on this project, we had a big assumption in place where we said that, hey, we are going to show promotional mortgage interest rate using some existing calculation logic that we had. And by the time we were about to start developing this project and about to go into testing phase, we realized that the logic that we had used before to create the promotional rate was very different than what we are trying to use right now, because that logic needed almost 50 or 60 different type of inputs before it can calculate and show us the exact interest rate. But but we did not give that much information. For promotional rate, we just had like 5 or 6 fields to give as an input and still expect the similar results in terms of this is the APR, this is the interest rate, this are the points that you're going to pay for a mortgage that you're going to take from a bank. So it was a really chaotic situation, and things happens. We had a couple of solutions in mind. If we were planning to recreate that entire calculation logic, if we would have done that, it would have taken us additional 2 months of time to deploy this project. So we would have missed our delivery deadlines by 2 months, and at the same time there will be additional investment. We would have lost opportunity cost because of that. The other option that we had was we'll bring in some other team and they'll do this work for us. But it was very difficult to find someone at short notice because it's a very specific need, and we're talking about the pricing engine. Like, you need someone who is really expert to work on this, right? You cannot just hire a new resource or give it to someone else and they can do it without having any questions in their mind. So that option was ruled out as well. So third option that I gave them was about the workaround, where we give dummy values for the additional 45 fields that we were not planning to give before. So we give pseudo values behind the scene, some fake values, and still input 50 values to spit out the result from the calculation logic and look at those APR interest rate and those numbers, right? And so we had about 10 different loans for which we were planning to show these numbers. So we had to create literally 10 fake loans, 10 fake applications, and we were able to get the promotional interest rate and APR using the existing calculation logic. It saved us about 2 months of additional work. We were able to meet the deadlines. It still passed by a week or two after that because we had to generate this data. We had to test it. Everything is working fine and all. But at the end of the day, it did get delayed by a week or two. But we were able to finish this project, although there was a big chaotic moment in between. So I think it's all about thinking about workaround when situation like that comes in. Work as a team, try to find out, try to do brainstorming. How could we solve this? As opposed to blaming that, hey, why has this happened? We will schedule another session to discuss about that, why it has happened. But right now, at this moment, the need is to find out how can we solve this.
Thank you. Risham, you can go ahead.
I'll go to a more basic question than what Rajiv's asking. My next question that I had on my list is how would you start plan a new project? I know we talked about this in our lecture, and we would do like the whys and kind of in my notes. I also put, in addition to the whys, I put just the basic outline of waterfall, basic outline of agile, but you're saying maybe focus on waterfall. Is that right?
It doesn't really matter. If the job description says waterfall, then focus on waterfall. If job description says agile, then we have to focus on agile, right?
Okay.
And when you start a new project, you cannot really say waterfall or agile. It's a decision that we have to make.
Okay.
So typically in companies, when I see and when I work for the newer projects, that like a new product, not an enhancement, but like actually a new product, right? What we do is we try to I at least try to follow W4H framework. What I mean by that is I will try to find out who are the users, who are going to use this product. What are we building? Before all these things, the biggest question is, why are we building this? Problem statement is extremely important. I would really spend a lot of time on understanding the problem statement. There could be 100 problems that we want to solve, but we're not going to solve all the 100 problems on day one, right? But instead, we would choose top 3 or 5 problems, and those are like deal breakers. If you fix those things, you'll fix 80% of your issues automatically. So I would try to cherry pick those 2 or 3 key problems that we are trying to solve for. It could be an existing application. It could be just out there and there is no application to solve it. That's completely fine. So my goal is to understand who is using it, what are we building it, why are we doing this. Once we get that information, we can probably define some high level timelines and high level technical solution. Hey, this is how we could solve this. So answering this 4 or 5 basic questions will help me create my business case. Once I create this business case, I will review it with other people around me who are experts in this area. I will take their opinion. I will take their suggestion. I will add more data to that. I will do market research. I will add data to that. And then it will give me more clarity on what should be our next step, right? Once we define that next step, I will be working based on the type of organization I'm working on. We'll probably find out what kind of things will be built by our team, where all we need help from some other team, where all we need help from vendor product, like some third party or do we need to outsource something? So buy versus build, we'll make those decisions. If we are going to build this, how are we going to build this? We have, of course, some company follows waterfall, some company follows agile. We will talk about that. What is the best approach? This is this big product, and it might make more sense to do this agile way as opposed to waterfall. So we'll make those decisions. Once we make those decisions, we'll follow those process, creating those documents like user stories, BRDs, FRDs, use cases, wireframes, and all those things that we keep doing it for several months, right? Once we do that, we'll work with designers and development teams to get actual designs and code written for the product. And at the end, just test it, make sure that release guidelines are met. We roll out the product and train people internally to use the same product. So when customer calls us, we are able to tell them, hey, this is how the product is working, in case if they have any question. So this is the approach I would follow. But my lot of my emphasis for the newer product would be on the in the beginning, in the planning phase. I really want to make sure I understood the need of the project. If there is no foundation for that, the entire project is going to derail.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I have one more.
Go ahead. It's your time. Feel free to ask me as many questions as you want.
Yeah. So one question is, it's a very critical project and it involves very sensitive information related to a personal identifiable information and HIPAA related information, health information. Okay. And it's a very, very crucial project. How do you, as a business analyst or as a product owner, try to collect requirements from the client and pass it on to the team members so that all this information is not leaked or there is no, you don't jeopardize the private information of the clients? Could there be any question like this?
So I'm trying to understand a little better that question. So are you saying that we are using some file that I want to send from one person to another person?
Could be that this project probably involves, transferring of files between, or when you're trying to create a new project, there could be some uploading of files with sensitive information.
Yes, of course, that could be a question like that, right? So all you're asking is, like in our project, we had Empower and we had Salesforce, right? When customer sends us the lead ag information, his first name, last name, email ID. In some cases, if customer is also sending us his SSN, yes, we will not be exposing customer's SSN in Salesforce or in Empower, right? So when you send any sensitive information to a third party or to some other applications, you always try to encrypt them. So you work with your technical stakeholders to make sure that nobody can access that. You understand the logic behind encrypting and decrypting that information. And encrypting, so Resham, just for knowledge, encrypting is anything that you see with ... right? You don't see what customers are typing. So when they type their SSN, when they click on submit, system will automatically encrypt that information. And I will work with my technical team to find out that logic, how that encryption should work. And then I will send that information in different ways. You can probably send that information in the same API, or you could generate another file, and that file will be sent securely so that nobody can use that file other than that person should be. and that file will be sent to that team, and the team will use that information. They will decrypt that information. They will find those values, and they will move forward with their process after that. It's a little technical question. I'm not sure if they're going to ask you this or not, but good one to at least remember that we have encrypted things in API and in file. We can send that securely to another team or another third-party tool that we are using.
And the other question would be one more question, probably would be in terms of how you work with the team, or probably there is some kind of a conflict in the team. How do you handle that kind of situation? Like wherein you cannot approach your boss because he's like, he's very busy. And then the client that you're trying to get requirements from is also like, it's not that very kind of, he's not very open-minded. He gives you very less time. He's also very busy. How do you handle those kind of, gathering the requirements and also dealing with the conflict that's going on with the team in case there is a conflict?
So I can definitely say there will always be a situation like this, right? There is always be a situation like this because it's very hard to keep everyone happy, right? But at the same time, when I work as a BA or a PO, like business analyst or a product owner, I try to think in terms of what is good for the company, right? What is good for the enterprise? My first question is always that. And once I think in that direction, I keep my emotions aside, because it's not that whatever decision I'm going to make, it's always going to be right. If I could do that, I will be a Superman, right? That's not really how it works. But I really try to cut down my emotions from the recommendations that I'm giving, and the only way I can do that is literally being honest to myself. If I were to use this suggestion before I propose it to someone else, I want to propose it to my own self. Am I able to convince myself? Okay, these are the data points. If we do this approach one, these are the profits I can have, and this is the disadvantage that we have. I'll put together that in a matrix. Once I put together in a matrix, and if I still feel that the recommendation that I had is really valuable and team can learn from this, and it would be really helpful for company to get more benefits from that, then I would literally take that pros and cons analysis. I will put that in terms of in terms of PowerPoint. I'll schedule a meeting with everyone who is involved in the project. I'll tell them, I will not show my PowerPoint. I'll just collect their thoughts. Hey, we are saying that there are two different approaches. This is approach one, this is approach two. Let's talk about the pros and cons of each of the approach that we were talking about right now. So we'll create that matrix together. I would not go ahead and share my matrix directly over there, because it's kind of counterintuitive. If I do that, I'm trying to impose my thoughts on someone. But I would first love to understand the approach that they had. What are the good things and bad things in that? And then I will give my approach that, hey, this is the second approach. If you want to consider, let's talk about the good things and bad things about that. Now, when everyone is looking at the good things and bad things at the same time, it's a human tendency, of course, where the good things are there, where companies getting more benefit, people will automatically incline to that. So it all depends on bringing people together and making this decision together, as opposed to making this decision individually and saying that, hey, this is the right thing for the company. Let's make everyone part of it, and let's make everyone feel that this is the right decision for the company, right? And I could be wrong. There are times where like 3 out of 10 times, I do have to agree with the other person's suggestion, and I have to. I'm flexible to accept other people's suggestion. If I don't do that, then I'm a rigid-minded person, which is really bad for the company. Right? Don't say this last line. I just went into the flow, but don't say this last line.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
It always, whenever there is a conflict, it always depends on the pros and cons. And ultimately, you want to find out who is the decision maker, who is the person accountable for that, right? We just need to tell them, hey, if I am the CEO of the company, I am not willing to make this decision. Are you willing to make this decision if you're a CEO of the company? The moment you ask this question to someone, people will start thinking, hey, am I doing this right or wrong, right?
Risham, you can go ahead if you have.
I have a small list of conceptual questions about what we covered in the lectures. They're not like interview questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I wrote them down. Okay, so we talked about data mapping, and we also talked about DFD. Can you kind of cover what the difference between those two are? I felt like they were similar.
They are widely different. DFD and data flow diagram and data mapping. In data mapping, what you do is you try to find out the interfaces involved in your project. So if I give you an example, I was working for a project on a digital mortgage where we were reinventing the entire customer portal for our customers. And we had three different applications there. We had customer portal, which is our website. We had Empower, which was the workflow to manage the entire mortgage flow. And we had Salesforce. And in Salesforce, we were managing the sales lead, right? The lead, the customer's data there. So we had these three different type of interfaces. Between these three different type of interfaces, we had several APIs. So I literally found the names of those APIs, and each of them had its own database. So I literally wanted to make sure that whenever one piece of information flows from customer portal to Salesforce through API or to Empower through API, and ultimately it goes and sits in the database, what is happening, how this data is flowing, right? So we created a data mapping document for that. So the way I create this is I will start with the interface name first. So on the interface, there will be a page name. Under that page, what section and the field label. So there is a field that is in a particular section of a page that needs to be mapped to a particular API. In the API, this is the element. And in that element, now that element is mapped to the database behind the scene, which will go to a particular table and a particular column in that table and a particular database. So I will try to put together the entire mapping across this different interfaces and different APIs for this one field. Like this, if we have 50 different fields, there could be hidden fields which we cannot see, customers cannot see, but system is capturing on its own behind the scene. And there could be visible fields. I will create the list of all those 50 fields, and I will create the mapping for each of these 50 fields to make sure that the customer is giving information is being saved and stored at the right place and in the right system. That is called data mapping. Data flow diagram is a little different. So I don't create data flow diagrams on my own. I usually work with technical lead to make sure that they are able to create this data flow diagram based on the scenarios I will give it to them. So I bring in use cases. The use cases would be in the same example. If I want to talk, there are 4 different use cases. Customer can look at the promotional interest rate, or customer can submit their contact information, or customer can customize their interest rate if they want to. So there are 3 or 4 different use cases we had. And I would talk about those use cases, give more details to technical lead, so they have this information so that they can create this entire data flow diagram for these 3 interfaces and all the APIs involved in that. And whether they're using push methodology or pull methodology for pulling information from one or the other interface.
Okay.
So that's completely different. So data mapping is more of a matrix where you try to map things around, and data flow diagram is where you just show the flow. Instead of process flow, it is more of data is flowing from one point to another point.
Yeah, that's right. You said that the DFD is similar to a process flow.
Yeah, but over here, the only difference is that you send data from one point to another point, as opposed to customer taking one step and this is the next step. It is system taking steps now. This is the first step. This is the second step.
Okay. So can you say that data mapping always involves fields connecting to other fields?
Always,
okay.
Always. And 99% you will not get chance to do that.
Okay.
There is one more thing that we have covered in the class: data mapping, data flow diagram, and data validation. Data validation is a little different than data mapping. Data validation is one of the column in data mapping. So if you are using first name in data mapping, what will be the validation for that field? It cannot accept numbers.
Yeah.
It cannot accept URL. It cannot be more than 50 characters long. That's your data mapping. That's your data validation. For SSN, it cannot be alphabets, right? For dates, it has to be in a certain format. So we need to put those validation requirement as well in data mapping document.
Okay. So user story acceptance criteria versus use case steps. Is one necessarily more detailed than the other? Did that make sense?
So I can tell you what are the differences between them. Okay. First of all, we use user story in agile format, like in agile world, right? Where people are using Scrum, we create user stories. And when we are writing user stories, we clearly think in terms of, as a user, I want this. So there is some benefit when we do that story, right? And I write some high-level business acceptance criteria where I'll talk about the high-level business rules, high-level business process logic. I will create some mock-ups. I will talk about some high-level error scenarios, give the exact language of the error scenarios and stuff like that in user story. This is all I do in user story. But when I'm writing use cases, I think very differently, because they are very different documents, right? So before creating a use case document, I will create a swim lane diagram. I will try to understand different type of actors involved in it. Once I find out which kind of actors are involved, now for those actors, I will make sure that I have a clear lane defined in swim lane diagram, and I have all the actions that they're going to take defines clearly in their lane. So swim lane diagram is extremely helpful. Before even I begin to write anything, I'll create that diagram first. That is the first thing I will do. Second thing, I will try to find out the happy path, the alternate path, and the error scenarios. What are the error scenarios I'm going to work into, right? For a particular project. So once I have those.
So happy path, alternate path, error scenarios, that's what we discussed when we talked about use cases, right?
Yes.
But you're saying this can go either way.
No. I'm talking about use case right now.
Okay.
I'm talking about use case, right?
Okay.
And so in use case, I will talk about those three things. I create the swim lane diagram before I begin with use case.
Oh, okay.
And after creating the swim lane diagram, after identifying the actors, I will identify the different scenarios involved: happy path, alternate path, and the error scenarios. Now, once I've defined at a high level what are those scenarios, I'll try to add high level steps in that, like the way user is going to perform those steps and how each actor is going to involve or interact with each other in that process flow, in that entire use case, right? So it starts with the prerequisite, which is called triggers. There are a couple of things that you need to take care of in terms of use case, which you don't do in user stories. So over here we talk about the triggers. What is triggering this particular use case, right? What are the primary actors? What are the secondary actors? Then we define the actual use case steps. That step one is that customer selects this information. So this is what is happening. Now Salesforce comes in the picture, where Salesforce receives this information, sends a message back to this customer. Customer reads the message, accepts it, and clicks on submit. It goes to Empower. Empower sends information back. And when Empower sends information back, it will again go back to customer. Customer accepts it, and it will show thank you message, something on those lines. And then at the end, it will show you something as post condition. What are the outcomes? Customer will get a call back from someone from the company. Customer will exit from the browser by closing the X button. Those are the outcomes of a use case. And error scenarios would be some alternate path or different way of doing things, right? Customers can come to our page. They can choose to customize the interest rate, or they can choose to submit the contact information, or they can choose to view the promotion rate. So it's on them. Most of the customers are going to come and choose to customize the rate. There are some people who will choose the other options. So I will call out those options and write those scenarios in that. Cool. So everything that I said in last few minutes was all use cases. User story is very different, as we said in the beginning, right? It's just like adding some acceptance criterion. As a user, I want this, so that this is the place where you can also mention there are two different ways I've written user stories in. First is the some plain basic acceptance criteria. The next one is given, when, and then. Gherkin code, test driven development. Right? So you can give the examples. So we have created several user stories. Read through them, have those stories in your head. So whenever you want to give example, you don't have to think about another example. Just use those stories as an example and just say that in the interview. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. What's next, guys?
It looks like Resham has a big list. So
Good. I think you guys are asking good questions. These are the kind of things I wanted to cover on my own. But if you guys are asking, it's even better because you are interviewing. So you are learning two things right now: how to interview someone. You may be surprised. You will end up doing these interviews for your team if you are hired. And second is how to give your interviews, right?
Actually, my next two questions, I think I kind of covered in the beginning. I was asking specifically about TDD and types of analysis, if we need to know them for the interview. And
yes, we do have to. We do have to. And I think we can talk about all those things: impact analysis, root cause analysis, gap analysis, risk analysis. I think we've covered exclusive slide on that, if I remember.
That's right, you did. The document that you sent today has like the fishbone analysis, yes, for example. Yeah.
Don't say fishbone for the interview. Just say root cause for now, okay, and that should be okay. Because if the moment you say fishbone, people will ask you more questions in terms of Six Sigma. I don't want them to ask you on those.
Okay.
It's just another name of a root cause analysis, but let's stay away from that.
Okay. Let me look at my list to make sure. Oh yeah. Can I share my screen for a
Yeah,
second?
sure.
Yeah, James, while she's sharing her screen, one quick question.
Mhm.
How fluent should be in your answer that you provide? Because there needs to be a flow, right? If there is a little bit of break, probably then the interviewer probably can know that probably this person doesn't have that kind of an experience, or probably.
I always have this STAR in my mind. STAR, STAR, situation, task, action, and result.
Mhm.
I always, so whenever I'm explaining something, I will always give you a situation first. This was the situation.
Mhm.
This was the action required, right? And
Mhm.
so I think, sorry, task, STAR. I confused myself. So it's situation, task, action, and result. So in this situation, these were the tasks required to be completed. This is what I did, and this was the end result. So if I talk about the conflict, right? How I started, uh, there was a proposal that we had in the mind, but my proposal was not aligning with someone else's proposal. That was the situation. In that situation, what task I had, we created the pros and cons. I first created on my own, pros and cons on my own. Then I pulled together everyone from the team. That was my action. Then we created this matrix together. The end result was we evaluated both the options and we found out that what is good for the company, let's go with that approach. That's the end result. So situation, task, action, and result. You would never fail with this. It will take some time. So whenever you create your own stories for your interviews, try to create in this format your answers. In first 1 or 2 interviews, you will not be successful. Don't worry about that. I can tell you up to 4 or 5 interviews. If you're not being successful, it's completely fine. Right? After that, you will be. Okay. And we all know this, right? Even if I go for interviews, I'm not gonna crack all the interviews. That is not how it works. Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Sharing is not enabled for me right now.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so when we talked about user stories, we
Mhm.
came up with this list here.
Yeah, that is how we have broken down stories.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing for me still. This it's like an almost cyclical kind of
Okay.
list.
Can you please scroll up?
Yeah.
So anytime, whenever you are in Agile flow, you will always start with wish list. Okay. So this is another interview question. Explain Agile. Right? How
Okay.
does Agile work? So this is where I will probably go over all this information that you are seeing here. So for the projects that we were working on, we usually started with the brainstorming session. In that brainstorming session, we had created a lot of wish list. Right? Every person had given us sticky notes. They were writing on those sticky notes their ideas, and we were putting them on the wall, right? And we did this for an hour and a half. Once that was done, we moved around the stuff on the board so that on the wall to categorize and subcategorize this wish list that was created by everyone, right? Once we had them categorized properly, we created epics and sub epics in our Jira or version 1 tool, whatever tool you were using. Once we created that, I had started scheduling prioritization session. So because I wanted to come up with the product backlog first at a high level, right? In that product backlog, I had just two specific goals in my mind. First is identify the dependency, and second is which product we need to prioritize first to go to the market. I will just focus on those two things. So if we have a laundry list, we'll just prioritize first 2 to 3 things, 2 to 3 products based on the dependency and based on their complexity. Once we identify those 2 to 3 product backlog items, I'll work with my product owner or I'll work with my product manager to, to break this epic into several user stories. And then I will pick each of this individual user story and start writing the acceptance criteria and the story description for them. Okay. And while breaking the story, there are different ways one story could be broken down into, right? So when you have a big feature, you always have the functional aspect, that you have several functional features that you want to break, that you want to write stories on. The second is, before you do that, if it's a bigger product, you also want to do some technical research. So I will have specific stories for researching technical solution. Then there will be stories specifically for developing APIs, because if it's a bigger product, technical team has to start working on this in advance. Everything cannot be achieved in one sprint. So if I want to define that, I will make sure that there is a research story, followed by there will be a development API stories. And after that, if we are following also automation in our company, then I will also put some specific stories for automation testing, where our testers can write the automation scripts for these scenarios, right? So I'll be having a functional story, I'll be having a research story, technical story, then the automation story. I will also have stories created specifically for designs, where UI and UX designer has to create designs for the product that we are working on. That person needs a specific story to work on, so I'll create that story as well, and I'll work with them, of course. And there are some places where we require some additional calculation or configuration changes. I will make sure to capture that in my user story. So when we are making those changes, people are aware about that. So these are the different type of stories that could fall for a particular product. And how we build this is, once we have prioritized a couple of epics, once we break down the stories into multiple stories, I'll be working with my product owner and scrum master and my team to groom the stories, story point them. Once the stories are pointed properly, we'll go to the sprint planning session in the priority order. They will start picking the stories based on the priority order. It can take 2 to 3 sprints to get the entire product out, because it's not a small product that we're working on, right? And once it is in the sprint, because we already groomed the stories, once stories are within the sprint, team will look into the stories now. And what they're going to do, they will be asking me some questions to clarify the acceptance criteria, or there is a defect that they have found which you need to prioritize again, or there is some missing requirement that has come through which we need to discuss. So we'll be having those kind of discussions within the sprint. And at the end, when sprint is about to close, I'll schedule a demo session with my product manager and give them the capability that we have built so far. I'll give a demo on that. And at the end, we will be part of the retrospective session scheduled by my scrum master. So this is how the entire agile works. My answer is a little longer. You need to cut down this in between, but you don't have to give this story breakdown in your interview. You talk about this only when someone asks you. Okay, but rest everything in this answer should be as is in the flow.
Okay,
So, again,
so if
but I start starting wish list to implementation. That is
yes. Okay, yeah. So if they ask me, how do you break down a story, then I can give these kinds of things like examples.
Yes, research story, technical story, automation story, UI design story, and there will be functional stories.
Okay.
But it can backbite you as well if you say this in the interview. It all depends on person who is interviewing you. So
because they might
Agile says all these things should happen in 2 weeks. But in reality, it doesn't happen in 2 weeks. People are struggling to meet the pace, right? So if you're working for Amazon, if you're interviewing for Google and Amazon, if you say these answers straight away, they're going to reject you. But if you're working for other companies where they're transitioning from waterfall to agile, then it's okay to give this kind of information. And you will know this when they are explaining about the company. This is what we do. This is the methodology we follow. And from the job description also, you'll get an idea what are their expectations. If it is one story, if you don't break story in this way, then there will be different tasks for each story. So story will have a task for design, automation, research, and development. Instead of having 4 different stories, for a single story, you will have 4 different tasks now. That's the another way to handle that. Okay, just for your knowledge.
Okay.
Cool. What's next? I think you guys have asked great questions. I think you guys have already covered about 60-70% questions that I had in my mind.
Okay, good. I don't think I have anything else.
So they would ask you to prepare a story. No, sorry, they would not ask you, but I'm expecting you to prepare a story on these 3 projects, right? Which is digital mortgage, mobile application, and lead routing. Your story should be very similar that we have covered in the class, right? Problem statement, solution, key performance indicator, and the final result after the product was delivered. You want to talk about these 4 things, and in this order. This was the problem we were trying to solve. This was the solution we said. We did it using waterfall or agile. And these were the key performance indicators we had, and these were the actual results out of that. I want you to talk about all these 3 projects when you talk about these projects in your interview in this order. Okay, and you need to, I think we have created project charter and scope document for a couple of these projects. So read through them. You need to have the script in your head, not word by word, but at least the format. right? The kind of information we have laid out at a high level, we should be only talking about that. We should not be talking about the colors and the fields and the layout and the placement and all those things. Big no. When an interviewer is talking to you, he wants to hear your story in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, you cannot explain anything more than project charter. So for those 3 projects, I really request you guys to understand that flow of the project charter and remember those things. So if someone puts you on the spot, this is how it can start. Tell me about yourself. You can do, tell me about yourself. What is your current role, or what are your daily responsibilities look like? And tell me something about your project. These are different questions. Okay. It can be different question. It can be same question. It's all on you. It's an open-ended question. So if someone tells to talk about, tell me about yourself. If you want, you can talk about your recent project. That, hey, I was working on LeadEgg project. This is what we did. These are the KPIs. These were the outcomes. And we followed using Agile. These are the additional documents I can create. You can create your answer that way. Or you can create your answer, hey, we were working in Agile environment. Give the entire Agile, like I said right now. Explain the entire Agile. Or talk about the entire waterfall. It's all on you. When you're talking about, tell me about yourself. So your answer will depend on the job description. If job description talks about Agile, I would use all the jargons of Agile, like I will define the entire Agile as opposed to waterfall. If they're using waterfall, if they ask for BRD and FRD, then the first answer that I gave in the beginning of the call, I'll go with that approach. Right? So again, things will change. So if you explain Agile as your answer and tell me about yourself, then there will be a specific question about your project. Hey, what are the projects you worked on? So talk about one of the projects from these 3 projects. Or vice versa. If you would have said about the project in your tell me about yourself, then they will be compelled to ask you something about waterfall versus Agile. Then talk about the Agile and waterfall and give them the exact details, like we talked right now. Right? So it can go back and forth. It will take you a few recruitment calls to really understand what they're asking and what answer fits in well. Right? And it's an exercise. So go through that. It's okay. And please do not be disappointed. It's a process, right? We have to fail several times to do something really big in our life, and which is completely fine. We will reach that. But this is a process. So when you start talking about Agile and waterfall, they can drill you further in terms of, like you did, user stories and use cases. What are the differences between that? What is sprint backlog? What is product backlog? How do you prioritize things? What are your daily responsibilities? The moment they say daily responsibilities, everything that I've sent you on day 1, you see on 2 slides, this is what I'm going to cover in curriculum. That is all your daily responsibilities. Throw all those jargons on them. Right? Hey, if it is Agile, hey, I was conducting sprint grooming sessions, sprint pre-grooming sessions. I was working with my team to prioritize the defects, to conduct the demo sessions, to prioritize the sprint backlog, working with my product owner, prioritizing the roadmap, prioritizing the product backlog, all those jargons that we think about, throw at them. If it's waterfall, everything about BRD, FRD, process flows, mockups, wireframes, user acceptance testing, all those things. So your daily responsibility can be different based on the environment where you're working. Right? So once they talk about your daily responsibilities, now they'll ask you a few more questions. Hey, what kind of work culture was that? How did you, was there any conflict? How did you solve that? How did you deal with difficult stakeholders? So I have 2 recordings that I'm going to send with you. One is on Scrum Master exclusively, and another one is more on this. If there is a stakeholder who is not giving you requirements, how would you deal with them? So our framework, what do? We do pre-analysis. Before we go into any meetings with any stakeholder, we'll do pre-analysis. We'll come up with a lot of examples, right? And I will use meeting minutes heavily as my tool to finalize my requirement. I'll schedule some meetings and I will tell them, hey, this is what I am thinking that this product is about. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. The moment I share my recommendations, the moment I share wireframes and mockups, they're compelled to give me more information. Because if they don't like something, they have to say yes or no. Right? And that's what I'm looking for. If they say no, okay, then what are we looking for? I get my answers, I update the mockups, I send my meeting minutes, I get their approval, then I copy paste the same information into BRD, just refine my language, and I'm done. Right? This is how I deal with difficult stakeholders. If there is a person who does not want to give you any information, then how would you deal with that person? that business stakeholder. So a business stakeholder does not want to give, based on my experience, when business stakeholder does not want to give you requirements or is hesitant to talk about details, there is a specific reason behind it. It's because that person may not be able to connect why exactly we need this information. So it's my job as a BA to make sure I make him understand that, hey, this is the reason I'm asking you these questions for, right? And not in a way, but I'm asking you this question for. This is the reason we need this information. If we don't, then our team will not able to proceed further. There is a bottleneck. And if you're not able to answer this question, it's completely fine. Do you feel comfortable for us to make these decisions? If it's okay, we'll make those decisions for you, or give us some other point of contact who can give us this information, right? So it's an approach. You don't get disappointed. You still make your way out of it, with him or without him. As a BA or a PO, you always have to walk on that path, whether someone is with you or whether someone is not with you. You will, most of the times you will find yourself alone in that path, and which is completely fine. We are self-driven people. We are tough-minded people. We do not need anyone's help. We can carry the entire load on our shoulder and still move the car, right? That's completely fine. And the moment people will see you do that, they will come back and they will support you. So I'm telling you, it will work out. You will get a lot of criticism. At the same time, you will just get one appreciation that will take away all your criticism. Okay, so wait for that one time. All right, what's next? Let me cover a couple of questions that I had in my head. Sure, they can ask you, so specifically between business analyst and product owner. I'm not talking about Scrum Master right now because I'm going to share an exclusive recording on that, which will be for 30-40 minutes, and it will be all Scrum Master specific questions only. But for a PO and a BA, it's very important for you guys to understand the boundaries between them. So PO, someone can ask you this in an interview, that, hey, what is the difference between product owner and business analyst? So I want you to answer that question. We have covered this very exclusively in the class in the Venn diagram, right? But if I were to recall a few things in my head, this is how I would go about that. Product owner is mostly focusing on the user research, right? Doing the market analysis, competitive analysis, and prioritizing the product for us, defining what is MVP, what is minimal viable product. They will go through several road mapping exercises. They will follow the design thinking process. Design thinking is very simple. It's you think something, you ideate, you fail, and you repeat, right? You create something, you ideate, which is like you repeat yourself, you fail and you repeat, you fail and repeat, and then at the end you will have a good designs that have been created. So you will work with product owner to create all those designs, prioritizing roadmap, doing user research, understanding our users' need, defining the vision. All those things will be done by product owner. They might create a high-level user stories, just like one-liner user stories, from the when they want to break the product backlog into multiple stories, right? And from that point, business analyst comes in the picture. Business analyst takes that one-liner user story, creates a detailed acceptance criteria. Detailed acceptance criteria would talk about business logic, business process. It will have error scenarios. It will talk about configuration requirements. It will talk about web responsive requirements. It will talk about roles and permissions, the exact language that we have to use, mockups, wireframes, process flow. I will attach all those things in the user story. This is all job of a business analyst. In addition to this, business analyst will also run the pre-grooming and grooming sessions. Product owner runs the prioritization session for a sprint backlog and the product backlog, and the brainstorming session in some cases where he wants to gather innovative ideas from the entire team, right? Those are all done by product owner. BA will be taking care of pre-grooming or a grooming session and work with product owner to prioritize the sprint backlog, and then go to the sprint planning and throw those priorities at the team so team can pick those stories and start working on that. Then BA gives the demo, performs the user acceptance testing, and gives a demo to the product owner. Now, demo is like a mixed thing. Sometimes PO will not be comfortable BA giving the demo, so PO will give the demo to their stakeholders. But BA gives it to PO, and PO gives it to the larger business audience. So this is the definition or differences between them. Within the sprint, BA is the responsible person to answer each and every question the team has, which is about clarifying a requirement, missing requirement, how to prioritize a defect, if there is any any question about a specific user story or a use case, how to solve those things. This is all BA. So BA is more execution. PO is more innovation. In one word, if I want to define. Make sense?
Yeah.
And please go through that Venn diagram again, so you would know exact differences between them, and there will be an overlap. And I can tell you, 7 out of 10 times, you will not have both the roles in the company. You will be performing the entire responsibility on your own. Okay? And don't worry, it's a good leap. If you do that once for 1 year in your project, you are running 5 years ahead than your peers. It's a good responsibility to take on. It's a good problem to have, right? If you are lucky like me, then you will also get to work as a Scrum Master. Okay? But I think it all depends on the company where you'll be hired. And Scrum Master role is very, very simple. I can play Scrum Master role in my sleep. It's that simple. But the only thing requires in Scrum Master role is that you have to be courageous to ask questions, even though someone is your manager or your boss. Hey, where are we with this thing? You're asking for status. So the moment you ask status to someone, ultimately you become a boss, which people may like or which people may not like, but don't give a damn about it, right? We just have to do what we're supposed to. So I was working in a company called Wipro. My reporting manager was a developer lead for a team. So I had to ask for status from him every day. And he gets pissed off because I was trying to be pretty tough on him. So he came back and he was telling me, we are from the same company, why are you doing this to me? So I said, at the end of the day, if I do not perform well, you're going to tell me in my performance that I did not perform well, right? It just happened that you are working as a developer lead, which shouldn't have been the case. But you are. If I don't do my job, then I'm going to get a bad performance review. If you're not going to write it in my performance review, I don't bother you from today onwards, right? So he was like, nah, I understand, you're just doing your job. So he had to just accept it, right? There will be time where demo is a very sensitive thing. When people who gives demo, that person gets credit, right? Because hey, everyone will say, hey, you guys have done an amazing job and all those things. So a lot of times I have been told to not to go for the demo. It's all corporate politics. One of the recent example I shared with you all as well, right? Maybe what happened between me and my boss, where he wanted someone else to present. And there are a lot of times I cannot even. I am a leader. If someone wants to give a demo, I'll take a back seat. I'll let that person go forward, because it's like enhancing other person's skill. I will never have any fear or any kind of politics mind over at that point in time. But I've been told at least 20 or 30 times in my career, you should not be giving demos. When someone tells you this, understand there is insecurity and that person will not let you move forward. If that happens, within 6 to 8 months, try to find out some another job. Because if someone is telling you to not give a demo, which means you've already surpassed his expectation, right? Which means you can easily get another job. There is nothing that is going to stop you, unless our performance is at a level where we are not able to present in a demo. That's a different situation, right? But things like this will happen. So as a BA and product owner, the biggest question in terms of product owner would be, how would you identify or identify your priorities, or how would you prioritize things? The biggest question for a product owner. So if you guys remember, we talked about 20/80 rule. We will pick the initiatives which has less efforts, less development efforts, and has major impact to business and our customer. So there are different type of impacts I would consider. So customer satisfaction is one of the impact. Second is platform stabilization. Then the customer satisfaction, platform stabilization. Then the third one is it increases the business revenue, whether it's increasing the business revenue or not. And fourth one is convenience. What kind of convenience we're offering to the customer. And the fifth is the conversion, increasing the conversion. So increase in conversion is different than increasing business revenue or adding new customers. So if you partner with, let's say Uber partners with Wells Fargo today, Uber will get 200,000 new customers. Those are all new customers that they could not have, or they wouldn't have if they would have not partnered with Wells Fargo, right? That's different, as opposed to saying that, hey, on my website, I get 100,000 users, out of which 2,000 users are only signing up. By improvising my website, I'll get 4,000 users. So that's conversion, increase in conversion. But the first example of Wells Fargo, it's adding more customers, adding new customers, right? As a business person, you always want to have new customers. You also want to increase your conversion. You also want to do the platform stabilization. You also want to satisfy your customer. But business people will always look for two things: new customers and increase the dollar amount. That's it. But we cannot go with that. As a product owner, I want to define, to support those two things, I also have to support customer satisfaction. I also have to support platform stabilization. Platform stabilization will not add any value. It's just like making sure customers will not stop using your service. So you retain customer by providing platform stabilization. So I try to balance those things. Usually platform stabilization, I assign like 10 to 15% in one sprint. Like 15% of my efforts is assigned to platform stabilization. Additional 20-25% will be given to some small enhancements. And 60% of my effort is always driven for the new product. I want to make sure we are creating new product, and we are always targeting new market, and our revenue is going exponentially high. This is the framework I will have in mind. And I will share one Excel sheet that I've created recently. Do you guys remember change management?
Yeah.
Remember we talked about customer impact, business impact, timelines. That is the exact framework you need to have in mind while prioritizing something.
James,
it's not different.
Can we talk about Moscow in the prioritization?
Moscow, yeah, we did, right? Must have, could have, should have, and would have. Every requirement that we're going to write, we will write down what is must have, what is could have, what is should have, and what is would have. Right? And so Moscow is one option. Second is the customer impact, business impact, and the level of efforts involved in it. Less effort, more input. Always. I always put emphasis on 20% and 80%. 20% effort, 80% input. Sorry, 80% output. So I would use this. You can also go and search online for backlog prioritization method. You will find a couple more. But I think these are good enough to start with. As at a junior level role or at a mid to junior level role, this is good enough to start with. Okay. So that is a really question on that. On BA, I will be sharing the details and some documentation and some links. There's a lot of work, guys. I believe ball is in your court from now on. I really want you guys to be really, really aggressive. And I know, Rajiv, you have some constraints because of your new job. But Resham, I'm really liking it when you push me to send some information. Please keep doing that. That tells me that you are working really, really hard. And that is the only thing that is going to get you far from here. Right? So keep doing that. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. And go through all the interview material that I'm going to send in a day or two from now. Take your time, prepare it. We have December month to prepare really, really well for your interviews. So that maybe in first two interviews, I do have confidence in both of you. I think in first two interviews, you should be able to crack one. You should be able to crack one out of the first two interviews. So, but again, just don't go by my words, because you have to work hard to prove it right. Right? And I'm really brutal when I will take the mock calls. I'm brutal. So you may hate me when I'll be giving you my feedback. But I want to be really, really honest.
I mean, that's where you learn, right? If you don't know what your drawback is, how do you improve it?
Yep. I had one of the guy who learned business analysis from someone else, and he was asking me to start his marketing. I took his interview. Dude, he was like, he could not explain me one project. All his answers were like for 10 seconds. So I told him, I don't think we can really market you because you're not yet there. Because when we put forward your face to our clients, right, we want to make sure that you are presentable, right? And when I say you're presentable, not in terms of that our expectations are very high. At least talk about the basic responsibilities, right? And but the guy was really failing at that, and he never called me back because I was really, really harsh on the call. And I don't mind. I have to be harsh on the call because I have to give you honest feedback, right?
And James, you'll be sending us a list of questions, right?
List of questions, recordings, and 1 or 2 Word documents.
Sure.
So it will take time. Do only one recording at a time. Prepare for one role. BA and a PO, as I said, right? When you prepare for the interview, prepare both the roles at the same time. You do not know what the other person is expecting out of you. So it's always good to say that I have both the skills. And sell yourself like that. It's easy to get an interview. It's easy to crack the interview. And it's easy to survive at the job as well. That is the main reason I've combined these trainings, BA, PO, and Scrum Master. I've seen a lot of people doing this lately where one person is doing multiple things at the same time. Right?
One question off the topic, James.
Mhm.
How many meetings do you have in a meeting? And like, I mean, in the life of a PO or a BA, how, I mean, I know they're very busy, almost
6 hours out of 8 hours for sure. Right now, for last 2 months, I was like in meetings 8 hours a day. And after that, I have to work for 2 additional hours to create my documentation or something. And so things are getting a little harder than what it would have been in the office, because you're all communicating on phone, right, on Zoom. So you don't see each other. So for every single thing, you want to call someone, and when you call, meeting just gets extended. Where you use whiteboard sometimes in office, and things just gets like, you sit on your desk, hey, this is what I'm doing, and things are like done right there and there. But right now, I have to explain literally to someone. And the worst part that you would see, people will not be proactive. That is one skill, at least, that separates me from a lot of other people. And I would really encourage you to be proactive as possible, because I talk to my developers sometimes, like they have 10 years of experience. And I told him to send one email. He explained me everything over the phone. In email, he just wrote one line. So just imagine the confidence level. Right? And I called him, hey, what happened? He literally told me, I was not comfortable to write the entire description. I would let you do the talking. I'm like, dude, you just explained me. So there was no point. So in ideal scenario, if there would have been a good developer who had little high confidence, I would not have to get into his role and understand these things first of all. He would have sent this email on his own, and I would have saved my 1 hour on that day. But I have to get involved now, because if I don't, things will not move forward. 99% times this is what happens. If we don't involve ourselves as a BA or a PO, things will not move forward, or they will be working on the wrong things. It's really it's the brutal reality. There are developers who are really, really great.
Yeah.
And if you find those developers, they can literally become threat to you in the company, in a way where whatever they say, you have to listen, because they have two different skills now: managerial skills, which you already have, plus they understand the code, which you don't.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to respect that person, and not in terms of like that we have to flatten him and all those things. Just we know that he's a smart guy, and we need to be really careful what we say and what we don't say in front of him. There are times where I was put on the spot by my manager. I was reporting to a business analyst lead, and then I got assigned to a technical lead due to some reorg in the company, restructure. So they fired all the business analyst lead, and they made business analyst and product owner report to technical lead, because it was a development team. So there was a person with whom I did not gel well, and he became my reporting manager. So I knew that things will go wrong, but he was not that kind of person. He was really he had a positive spirit. He would not keep these things in his head. So he was a really, really smart dude, and he's one of my best friend till date. But what happened when I go into the meetings, I told him, like we were working on some of the project, I told him that, hey, I think we should not do it this way. We should try to do a workaround. They put me on the spot in front of 20 people. Why do you think we should do that? Right? And people will start laughing when they put this. You're just saying that, why do we need to do that, man? That is not important. And you are like speechless there. So luckily I was able to counter back on that point. And after meeting ended, he came back and told me, do not stop doing what you're doing. I know everyone is against you, but that's your strength. Don't stop it. That's what you should be doing as a BA and a PO. So till date, he and I are really good friends. We started our own startup, the one that I was showing you, right? So it all happened like 7 or 8 years ago. But things, when you find difficult people, they can become better enemies or they can become your good friends. Either way, it's going to work in your favor, because you are going to stretch yourself and you're going to learn extra. Right?
One more question, James. So sometimes when you are proactive, right, can it come and backbite you because they feel that, oh, this guy is trying to, he just come and he wants to get all the information, and then probably that might create some kind of an
insecurity. Yeah, it can create threat. It can backbite you. It's okay. So see, you have an option. If you don't do that, someone is going to tell you, you did not do this work. If you do that, someone is telling you to not do that work. I would rather take the second option.
Yeah.
So for example, in the interview, in the presentation where my presentation got trashed, someone feels that I was not able to present, that was his victory. But my victory was in creating that presentation on my own. Now, whenever I go and meet anyone, I have caliber to create that level of presentation. Whether I got the chance to present or not, it's a different story. I had elevated myself, right? So if you're proactive, when someone trashes you or someone gets threat from you, that's a positive sign. Keep walking on it. I would at least suggest you that. Do not stop. My personality is a little different. I try to put myself always in uncomfortable zone. Because when you put yourself in uncomfortable zone, that's the time where you will learn the most, right? And hence my resume is very different than my colleagues and my friends around me.
One more question, James. So sometimes when you feel that, there are some technical requirements that the customer is trying to deliver to you, and you don't understand that kind of a technicality in terms of the project, right? Can you just take a project architect or a developer who really understands?
Yeah, you can tell them that this is hitting my limits, and I don't understand this completely. But I would let my technical architecture or technical lead make these decisions and talk more about this. I'm not the right person to make this decision. And be confident when you say that. There is nothing wrong because it's not your role. Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? And again, whatever we have covered in the interview class here, there will be some more questions that we've not covered here, but we will only find them once you start going for the interviews, once you start applying. We'll read the job description, we'll find out what we've not covered so far. Let's talk about these things, right? So this is just the beginning. Whatever content I'm going to share with you all, this is the beginning. At a minimum, I'm expecting you to remember those things and be really well prepared with those things. Okay?
So the 4 projects are very important that we went through. The Uber
Extremely. I kept saying this. These are all real-time projects. You guys should really remember this. Nobody can, if you talk about these projects in your interview, you would really put yourself as a professional person. These are very close to the ones that I've created these case studies based on my knowledge and based on the observations around me. Actual projects would have been very different than this, but these projects could be bang on. Any company would need these projects. These are like that generic project.
Okay.
Be it healthcare, be it airlines, be it mortgage, be it any other company. Everyone needs this. Everyone needs a sales process. Everyone needs a workflow to manage. Everyone needs to reinvent their website. Everyone needs to create a mobile application. Right? These are the basic digital portfolio.
Sure.
Cool. And don't hesitate to reach out to me again. Just start working on this. Start preparing. You will, of course, find more questions when you start working on this mock interview preparation. And I always welcome more questions. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can talk in more detail whenever you need me.
Yeah. So James, one more question, last question before
I can stay on for 10 more minutes if you guys want. I want to make sure I get all questions answered today. So don't worry.
So the resumes that you're going to send us is one for the BA, one for the PO,
one for PO,
for the Scrum Master as well, or
Scrum Master. I can send it, but I think, as I said, it's a little difficult to step into that role because it's more of a people management.
Okay.
Right. So if you don't have experience, people will try to bully you when you go as a Scrum Master and as a fresher. So I would caution you to take that role. Still put that in your resume, but play it as like, hey, I do know Scrum Master roles and responsibility. I can handle them, but I'm mainly a BA and a PO. Right? I do know how to do things, but I'm not the expert on this side. But I'm definitely an expert when it comes to BA and a PO. If you feel that you are good at people management, then I can help you change your profile to Scrum Master and I can mark it on those 2 sides. That's completely fine. Whatever you guys like it, we'll work on it accordingly.
Actually, for this, I was trying to prepare 3 different resumes, one for the BA, one for the PO.
No, we need one resume only.
Okay.
We need one resume only. That is the reason we have combined these skills, because we want people to know that we know all the 3 skills. So give us an interview call. We'll do an awesome job at your company.
So now if we do 3 in 1, how will they know that, what your prior experience is? I mean, were you a PO, were you a
Leave it on me. Leave it on me. Just prepare yourself for your interview and leave everything else on me. I'll help you prepare your resume in that way where things will be called out really well.
Okay.
If you go on LinkedIn, you would see all business analyst has product owner. 90% business analysts will have a product owner skills associated now. Because lately because of agile, they are expected or they are forced to work as a PO.
Okay.
And they're doing a really, sorry?
So they're kind of getting blended, I guess. It's becoming more to. Okay.
In my current batch, I have a couple of people who have 15, 20 years of experience in IT. And one of them has really, really good experience on Six Sigma and PMP. Another person has like 8 years of real experience on business analysis. When I talk to them, sorry?
I have a PMP too, actually.
You have a PMP too? Alright, awesome. So when I talk to them, right, I found that, see, there is a problem. When you work for companies like Cognizant and Infosys, right? Cognizant, Infosys, Wipro, you feel like you worked there for 20 years. But in reality, they would try to create your career in a way where you've not learned more than 2 to 3 years of experience. Because they don't give you that liberty, that free hand to go and do things on your own. You are being micromanaged every time. So it kills your confidence over years. So it kills your ability to do something new or to go out like a lion and do something really new. So when you work for companies like Wipro, Cognizant, Infosys, Deloitte, McKinsey and firm and all those things, right? And TCS, there is a disadvantage of that. But the advantage is that your projects can go longer and longer. Nobody's going to fire you because of those companies. So you can have a stable income, but at the same time, your career growth will be very slow. Whereas if you work on a different project where you're not working for those companies, you're managing clients directly on your projects for BNPO, your curve will be like this. Right?
Yeah.
So there is a good thing and bad thing, of course, for every side. Because over here, if you lose your job, again, you have to find your own job on your own way, and it will take you a few months. So there is a few months paycheck that you're going to lose. But your career-wise, you will be very astounding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Any questions from you, Resham?
None right now.
Cool. As I said, if you have any questions later down the road as well, feel free to reach out to me. Keep messaging me, and looking forward for your mock interviews in a week and a half from now, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Cool. Have a good evening, and see you all later.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.